What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. You guys can probably tell that this is definitely a different type of video. Honestly, the reason why I even came up with it is because literally one day I was sitting right here and I was just thinking to myself, I tell a lot of stories from video game lore. Well, okay, granted, it's not that diverse yet. I mean, I think as of the time that this gets posted, I had just uploaded the Rapthorn Dragon Quest lore video, which, by the way, you guys should check out if you guys are fans of Dragon Quest 8. If not, I definitely recommend you guys checking out that game if you guys are fans of Final Fantasy X. But yeah, so after I had uploaded that video, I was sitting here trying to think of more ideas on what to do because I want to make this channel busier. As in, I want to fill it with more content. I was very on the fence with whether or not I wanted to keep it strictly lore, and I had decided against it because I always had thoughts and visions of if I were to have a YouTube channel, I wanted to make it more personal. If you kind of make it very saturated towards just one thing, then people are gonna tune in for just one thing, which makes sense as to why anytime someone tries to start different on their channel where they're already established in one thing, it's not going to get as much traction. It's almost as if you're starting from scratch. But there are those who are going to tune in because they want to see sort of the extras, the behind the scenes, anything different from what they normally see on the channel. I pretty much fall in that category, which is why this is sort of an idea that I kind of want to play with for the time being. Well, as that I'm thinking of it right now, by the time it gets uploaded, there's already going to be a title, like an idea for this name of the series. I'm going to call this Storytime with Enzo Plays. To me, it sounds kind of catchy. It's kind of long, but we're going to roll with it. If I think of a cooler name, or if you guys have a cooler name that you think we should use, then I might change it to that instead. So the idea behind this was, I'm a coach. I just love seeing people kind of improve at something that I personally found joy in improving in, and that's in Ultimate Frisbee. For you guys who are not aware, Ultimate Frisbee is a sport that utilizes the Frisbee. The rule sets are kind of similar to football and soccer. It is a field sport. I'm not really going to go into the details of that unless you guys want to, then maybe I could reserve an episode for that. But this one's going to be a little bit different. But anyway, the point is, when I coach, I get told that the kids know nothing about me because I rarely share stuff about my personal life. Because when I'm a coach, I'm like, I'm there, I have a job to do, I do the job, and then I kind of just go home and carry on with the day. I've been kind of putting the same approach here, but I'm figuring with this series, or at least with this video to start, maybe I could divert away from that and kind of get more into lore about myself. So if anything, this is actually going to be tidbits of lore about moi. And what better way to start than sort of with my gaming history? So I'm just kind of going to babble on about my gaming history, sort of how I got into gaming. Not my whole life story, just, the ones that are based around gaming. There is going to be some instances where I do have to share stuff about my personal life for context, but regardless, for this episode, it's going to be revolved around gaming. I don't expect everyone to tune into this kind of video because, again, it's a very different idea. It's very different from what you guys are normally seeing on this channel. In an effort to want to make this channel more busy and more filled with content, I'm going to start doing these more personal types of videos. So hopefully you guys stick around and maybe we can find something in common as I share the story. And if you guys do, feel free to share in the comment section. I do read them, even though I don't always reply, even though I really should. Sometimes I'll read it and I'll forget. So anyway, let's get started. I moved to Canada. I come from the Philippines, by the way, so I wasn't actually born in Canada. I moved from the Philippines in 2005 here to Canada, so I would have been 8 years old at the time. I moved here because my cousin already lived here at the time. He is someone I look up to because he is someone who always finds something to do. He absolutely hates being bored, and he has so many interests. And I found that to be an inspiration for myself. So I wanted to make sure I could explore as many interests as I could find. And it's not a surprise that gaming is one of them. My cousin played Final Fantasy X. That's the first game I saw him play when I would just barge into his room one day asking like, oh, do you want to go outside? Do you want to go, kick the ball around, just have some fun, just chill, because like what else do 8-year-old kids think when you're at that age? You just want to play and have fun, right? Who wants to think about like school and stuff? Like think I would have been in grade 2 at the time, but like who wants to think about that stuff? He completely ignored me because he was so busy playing Final Fantasy X, and this is where it all started. I remember the fight he was the fight he was engaged in when I first barged into his room and saw him play. He was fighting Seymour Natus. The reason why I knew it was Seymour Natus, it was because I recognized, okay, then I didn't know it was the Hybridgen Bevel, but like I recognized that the background was more of like a building, like an enclosure. It wouldn't have been Seymour Flux because Seymour Flux's battle happened in Mount Gagazet, which would have been more out in the open, so you would have seen more sky. This one was definitely all architecture. And the second thing is I remember my cousin, and he had a friend with him at the time. They were talking about elemental patterns. So with Seymour Natus, he casts his spells in a very specific pattern, which is where all that came from. And I was just watching because clearly he wasn't going to talk to me at the time because he was playing. I was playing, and the more I saw him play, the more I got interested in it. It probably has something to do with how much they really talked about how much they liked the game. They're not gamers anymore. My cousin's, again, too busy doing other things to worry about gaming. And his friend, surprisingly, I saw him at a Magic tournament just a couple days ago. So he's into Magic now, which I am too. I don't blame him. I love Magic. But that's, again, another episode. I go in, or I asked to borrow the copy of Final Fantasy X for the PS2, which, by the way, I still have. I should have brought it in here for this episode, but it's in the storage. But I still have the original copy. It's the greatest hits version of the Final Fantasy X PlayStation 2. I was playing it, and then the more I got immersed into it, the more I started discovering other games. So this is where games like Dragon Quest VIII came into play. Another Square Enix production. This is where a game called Radiata Stories, which is a very small indie game, which is, I think, is a spin-off of the Star Ocean series. It uses characters similar to those that you would find on Star Ocean. So characters like Lezard Vareth, I believe, is Star Ocean. Correct me if I'm wrong. Gabriel Celesta is definitely one. Oh, and also from Valkyrie. Oh, maybe it's Valkyrie Profile. Maybe I'm thinking of, because I also remembered Lenneth Valkyrie. There were definitely a lot of like collab characters from other games. And of course, a little later down the line, probably 2 years later, was when I first discovered Final Fantasy XII. And considering how much I love Final Fantasy X, I figured, all right, let's give Final Fantasy XII a shot. And that's kind of how I got also into Final Fantasy XII. So anyone asks me what my 4 pillars of gaming are, it'll be Dragon Quest VIII, Final Fantasy X, Final Fantasy XII, and Radiata Stories. Those 4 games, I would say, made up my childhood. Fast forward into high school. A lot of my friends played Call of Duty, so I kind of shifted from the RPG gaming and kind of immersed myself more into the shooter, into the FPS game. So that's when I would play games like Call of Duty. Zombies was a big deal back then. I never played much Battlefield, and I was more into console gaming because I was too young to buy my own PC, so my parents just kind of bought like a crappy one because they need to save money, which, you know, understandable. Yeah, that's when I played a lot of Call of Duty. So starting from Modern Warfare all the way up until, I still kind of play it to this day, really, but more casually. I think as of right now, Modern Warfare 3, the remake, is coming out this November. So that's definitely something I'm going to be looking forward to because it is Modern Warfare. I kind of call back to the legendary series because I did really enjoy Modern Warfare. That's when I kind of hit my FPS era. The RPG games I was really playing, I didn't really play too much. I kind of stepped more into like the casual world where it's like I wasn't exploring too much of like the deep, like the hidden treasures of gaming. I would play games like Skyrim when it first came out in 2011, and that's also how I got introduced to Oblivion. So I played both Oblivion and Skyrim sort of concurrently, and I would go over to my friend's house and we would play a bunch of Skyrim and a bunch of Oblivion, even though that my friends were more fans of Skyrim because it has better graphics. Look, I'm not someone who kind of cares too much about the graphics of the games. If the game knows how to tell a good story and has good gameplay elements, graphics so much are not that big of a deal with me. It was a mix of RPG and FPS gaming at the time. I remember I was really, really begging for backwards compatibility to be a thing because I wanted to play my old PS2 games into the PS3. Fortunately, they didn't have that feature, but I was happy when in 2013, I want to say, that Final Fantasy X and X-2 Remaster HD was coming out, which, by the way, they have started to re-release on like future consoles. And like even for the Switch, it came out. So, you know, that's just how popular that game is, right? And it makes sense because I make Final Fantasy X lore videos and people still watch them to this day. Then enter in sort of the late 2010s, and I never really got into battle royales. That's although I did start getting more into real-time strategy games. So we're talking games like Age of Empires, okay, not so much Civilization, Stronghold Crusader, for those of you who've heard of it. I love the economy building and sort of battle aspects of the games. I played a bunch of Total War. I remember playing the Lord of the Rings mod for Total War from Medieval 2, and just being able to play either as the elves, the humans, or the dwarves, or the orcs, them having their own special abilities and being able to use them in combat was just amazing. So there was that. I played a lot of it too. So when I enter a phase of gaming, I really invest to it. It's very rare that I'll sort of switch between genres relatively quickly. Like I will have sort of my main genre, and then I will sort of divert into other genres like as I go along. So for example, between 2010 and like 2015, it was the era of like FPS shooters, FPS games, because I was mostly playing Call of Duty, but I would play Skyrim from time to time, but I would also play The Witcher 3 from time to time. The Witcher 3 was also a game I was really captivated with. It is a game I do plan on revisiting. Who knows, might even make it a playthrough for the channel just because absolutely why not. And then from 2015 to like 2020, it was mostly RTS games. I kind of grew out of the FPS just because the only reason I played it was because my friends played it. And, you know, as you get older, you kind of start exploring your own interests, and then you just kind of do your own thing. At least that's what I did. I did my own thing. I know a lot of my friends still play together, but for me, I've always considered myself more of the lone wolf kind of character. So I just kind of wanted to do what I wanted to do. And it's also around the time where I started getting involved in a lot more sports. So that's when I first discovered playing Ultimate Frisbee, was around 2015. So I know this is only about gaming, but like I said, I did mention some personal life stuff's gonna get in just for context's sake. That's why sort of the gaming kind of took a bit of a back seat, pun intended, and no pun intended, because I was playing a lot of sports outside. I was playing a bunch of basketball, a bunch of Ultimate Frisbee. I started training a lot. And kind of going from 2020 up until now, I feel like I'm now entering the era of like D&D based games. So now we're talking games like Pathfinder. We're talking Baldur's Gate 3, which I'm actually currently playing right now. Games like Divinity 2, Original Sin, Path of Exile. I've played a little bit of Solasta, but not too much, but I am exploring sort of that tactical side of the RPG genre. There's one more thing I kind of want to mention. I did play quite a bit of ESO and like Guild Wars 2, so I did enter a bit of the MMORPG, but that was one of those genres where it's like I didn't play it too much unless I was playing with friends, so it's not a genre I would choose to play alone. So right now, as of the making of this video, I am actually delving a lot more into the turn-based tactical RPG style of games. So right now, like I said, currently playing Baldur's Gate 3. I don't have a physical copy of it because I downloaded it off the PSN store, which by the way, just the PS store now, not the PSN store. Jeez, that's very old terminology. But that's sort of my gaming history or my gaming lore into kind of cramped up into 15 minutes. I could talk so much more about it, but I kind of wanted to make it as short as I possibly could. I know a lot of you guys are probably going to find this boring. I hope you don't and kind of stuck around up until this point. Or if you do, please let me know in the comment section below what games you guys were really into when you were younger, or what kind of games you guys are playing are now, or what games you played when you were young that you want to kind of see up until this point. There are a bunch of games that I can think of that have not been seeing love in like the current gen consoles. Like I know a lot of them are doing a really good job of bringing back old games through like the classics catalog for PS5, for example, and of course through PC you have the emulators you could use. But when I'm talking a game like Radiata Stories, I consider that game to be such a hidden gem. Some of its elements I consider to be ahead of its time. Like if I'm being perfectly honest, like multiple endings was introduced in that game. It was a game that was like, I think it came out like 2004, 2003, so it's a pretty old game. But I will always forever talk about it to anyone who knows the game. It is actually so much fun. In fact, my first video on this channel, it is a Radiata Stories tier list video. And it is for that reason. I just love the game that much. But anyway, I think that's going to do it for this sort of storytelling session. Again, if you guys tuned in to Storytime with Enzo Plays, I appreciate it. Hope you guys come back for more. And if you have any suggestions for what stories you guys want me to share, Let me know in the comment section below. And as usual, leave a like on this video if you enjoyed. And of course, subscribe to the channel if you guys want to see more content. It's going to be a crazy few months in this channel, I must say, because I will be exploring different ideas and just seeing which one clicks. So if any of the ideas click with you guys know how to show the love. And other than that, this is Enzo signing out. I will see you guys all in the next episode.